I guess it's gotten to the point where I'm supposed to talk a little bit to you guys. Again, my name is Brian. I'm an alcoholic. Very happy to be here, Tony. Thank you for asking me. I was telling somebody, I met Tony like, I don't know, 2.5 months ago. It was a while ago at the Sunrise meeting in Pasadena. And I think he heard me share and was like, hey, would you like to come out to this men's Stag meeting at an undetermined time in the future where I'll let you know? I said, sure. And then I thought I missed it. And so I was like, hey, did you set me up for a time? He's like, nah, but I'll let you know. And then he hit me the next week or something like that. You know, it's really interesting. Like every time I give a lead, I always pray for God to lead my thoughts and my words. And right before I started to talk, I didn't have anything planned to say. I like it that way. But I thought about the phrases that we have, some of them like the pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. A lot of names that I didn't have for my drinking before I came in here, but I was like, this is cool. I remember coming in here and thinking this is the most silliest, can I curse in here? Yeah. I thought this was the most silly, the silliest shit I ever heard was I'm a grateful alcoholic. I just was like, what the fuck is he grateful for? What is this person grateful for? But now I get it. I honestly feel like, I heard somebody share one time that this is the most exclusive club in the world that none of us has to be a part of. And we're here, you know, and I'm happy to be here. Honestly, my story is really interesting because I have several sobriety dates before ever making it to a meeting. I was drinking out there. I was relapsing, I was drinking. A lot of that self-will we talk about, right? I think the most time I had was about 11 months, just doing it on sheer, just, I guess they say white knuckling it. And, but always getting to that point where I'm like, well, am I really an alcoholic if I could stop for 11 months? And then you kind of get here and you start reading the literature and you start busting up laughing, seeing that like, you know, fucking Bill and Dr. Bob and these people had times where they could stop and shit like that. And then they finally realized like, I can't drink at all. That's the, you know. It's not the fact that we can't get sober, it's fucking staying sober, you know what I'm saying? In my home group, we have these things, they give us our defects through like this acronym called the Praggles. And you know, there's a lot of stuff that we said, or that was mentioned in those 12 principles, but the Praggles stand for pride, resentment, anger, gluttony, greed, sloth, self-pity, shit-talking, and then we add fear and addiction in there. And so we have a spiritual principle for each one, right? For pride, we have humility. For resentment, we have forgiveness. For anger, we have acceptance. For gluttony, we have restraint. For greed, we have charity. For, for envy, lust, I forgot that one. For lust, we have integrity. For envy, we have brotherly love. For sloth, we have action. For self-pity, we also have humility, which was really interesting to me because I liked how my sponsor explained to me that self-pity and pride were two sides of the same coin. That was something I never thought about before I came in here because they both revolve around being self-centered. And also shit-talking, asking our higher power to help us shut the fuck up. And for fear, we ask for faith. And for our addiction, we ask for connection. And when I got these spiritual principles, I thought what was interesting to me is my sponsor told me that all this shit revolves around fear. Everything. Why we end up in here, right? Like that drinking and using wasn't my problem, was my solution. But what was it before that was your solution? It was fear. Fear of not being accepted, fear of not being loved, validated, whatever it was, right? And I love that. I love thinking about how all this shit comes from fear. Well, for fear, I asked my higher power to give me faith. I did not start drinking early. I didn't start using early. I was very afraid of my parents. My dad was very militant. He was in the military. I don't know if you guys know who Joe Jackson is, but he kind of reminded me of him. Very Joe Jackson-ish. I didn't want to displease him. You know, he was very strict. My mom wasn't that way, but I just didn't want to upset her because she was just a very loving mom. They divorced at my early age of when I was young, and yeah, I did really well in school. But you know, one thing I did notice, not until I got to this program, but I noticed at an early age that I loved the validation I got from doing well in school, like getting that pat on the back from teachers and stuff like that, from getting straight A's and things. Like, I love getting those compliments, and where it stemmed from is because I've never really thought I was enough. That's another thing that I find irony about these rooms is that a lot of times you hear shares and leads, you hear it about, like, a lot of people share that they're not comfortable in their own skin, right? You hear that a lot, like, I just wasn't comfortable in my own skin, I didn't know who I was, I didn't like who I was. And I find it a little ironic that we all kind of come in here being uncomfortable in our own skin, and then we're just a bunch of uncomfortable people in this room sharing about being uncomfortable. But then we get comfortable though, you know? And so But anyway, so as I started to continue through my life, I think the first time I ever used anything was before alcohol, weed. I smoked the weed, and it was funny. The third time I smoked weed, and I don't know if it's okay to talk about the drugs in here. Okay, and it's going to lead to my alcoholism, I promise. But
It does. Gateway drugs.
Gateway drugs. God damn it. I smoked weed. The third time I got high, I got caught in school. It was funny. I don't know why I decided to smoke in school. My friends did, and I got perp walked through campus by my dean. And I remember he sat us all down, and he was reading. He was going through. He sat us all down one by one. He put me third, and he was talking about. He went one by one and was looking up all our records. And the first person, one of my friends, he was like, "Oh man, you're probably gonna get expelled. You keep getting in trouble, man. I don't know why you're here smoking at school." And he went to the next person, and he was like, "Oh, you too, man. This is even worse. I don't know why you're smoking at school. You're probably gonna get expelled too." Then he got to me and he paused for like 10 seconds, and he's like, "What are you doing hanging out with these people, man? You're too good of a student. You do well in school, man. Your parents gonna be upset." So I was really scared. My dad found out, and full transparency, my dad is one of us. He was in CA when I was growing up. And so these rooms are like a familiar, unfamiliar place for me. But I thought he'd be kind of understanding. He was not. He was very strict. They tried to send me to Christian boot camp, military boot camp. I mean, any kind of boot camp you could think of, or they were thinking about sending me to it. What they instead did was just have me distance myself from all my friends. So fast forward, I started drinking a lot when I got to college. I went to community college first, so it wasn't that far away from home. It was far enough. And I hear a lot of times in these rooms. How much time I got left? Good. Okay. I hear a lot of these rooms that I knew off, from the very start that my drinking wasn't like everybody else. That wasn't true in my case. Every single one of the people I drank with was one of us. Nobody ever made me feel bad about how I was drinking. They were just pass me the bottle next. So I had a lot of friends who actually are in AA now. So, I was one of the later people to get here. But I was one of those type of people that would go get a fifth of vodka, from Vons, and I had to take a sip before I even hit the car. And they asked me, "Man, you can't wait till we get to the party?" No, I cannot. I need to smell it. My mouth is salivating. I need to drink this shit right now. And it got worse. But it's hard to identify that you have a problem when everybody drinks like you. When everybody's partying the same type of way. I could stop during the week. During the I was proud of being the best drunk driver. I had 1,000 successful missions getting people home. Oh man, this guy he can fucking get us home. He no matter Anyway, it's bullshit. And it was funny too when we get in these rooms. They're stories of they're warning stories, kind of right. We tell them as a point to be this is how fucked up I was. Back then it was a joke, man, tell them that one time that you was driving home drunk and you blacked out and you hit that island and you popped off 4 of your tires and bent off 4 of your rims and you tried to pull in Target and then your fucking gear got stuck in first and you couldn't pull in and then you fell asleep on the curb and then woke up with the fire marshal standing over you or a fireman standing over you and a highway patrol officer. And that actually happened. And for some reason I didn't get a DUI. I never got a DUI. This was a problem with my drinking too, is I didn't have a lot of repercussions from my drinking. Or at least that I didn't think. I mean, you come in, you realize the wreckage of my past, my relationship suffered, my inability to show love in the correct way, all these different types of things I learned then. But as far as the external things, going to court, going to jail, things like that, I didn't experience those things. So it took me a long time to realize I had a problem. Then I became an introverted alcoholic where, I was just drinking in the house. I self-detoxed a lot of times. Curled in the ball, shaking from withdrawals. Always binge drinking for 10 to 14 to 16 days and then waking up and realizing I needed to stop, and my body was so dependent on it that when I tried to stop, it was just terrible. And then I kind of credit one of my friends who brought me into these rooms. He worked at a detox center, and I remember him telling me, this is after me doing this 8 or 9 times, self-detoxing. And him telling me dude, alcohol withdrawals are one of the few things you can actually die from. And when he told me that shit, that's when I started going to the hospital. The first time I went to the hospital, it did not get me sober. It did for 6 months, and I started again, almost and that's the insane part about alcoholics. You get far enough away from this shit, sometimes you need to forget, or sometimes you forget how bad it really was, right? And I love that old saying of think the drink through. Remind yourself how bad it really used to be. Because, I always had this just insane thinking that for some reason that I'd be okay this time. But the last time I went into the hospital, the last time I went to the hospital, I guess I had my white light experience. I just felt, I don't know if you guys know the term ashy. I mean, for black people, I know it's a lot worse, but I mean, I was physically, I don't know if you guys remember this, but if you drink long enough, you binge, like your skin gets really scaly, your lips start peeling, I mean, your eyes get bloodshot. I mean, I felt like a dried up prune, like a literally like left outside in this hot ass weather for like a year. And I was sitting in there and I had all these cute ass nurses around me. I mean, I just was really embarrassed. I was really embarrassed, and I had this moment between me and my higher power where I said, God, I will do anything at that point, right? And you read the stories and you identify with that, right? When you come in here like, damn, like, you know, these low bottom cases, I became one, you know? And I was hallucinating too from the DTs. I thought I actually saw God, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, it got me sober. I came out these rooms, you know, thank God that I had someone because I'm kind of like, I need someone to hold my hand sometimes to bring me into new places and new situations. I had a friend that had 12 years of sobriety and brought me into these rooms, and I'm forever grateful for that. And, you know, it didn't take me long, you know, like to realize. I went to a meeting where the sobriety in there was real serious. There was a step study, and everybody in there had a sponsor, who had a sponsor, they had sponsees. They were talking about this stuff. They were on fire for this shit. There was no loitering with the intent to get sober. Everybody in there was serious. And me, I don't like being on the outside crowd. I don't. And so I was like, I even shared one time in a meeting, I said, dude, I sit in this meeting and I feel like I'm a fraud if I'm not actually working these steps. I need a sponsor. And I got one. And the person that led me through the steps, he told me something simple. He said, there's no hierarchy when it comes to this. I'm an alcoholic just like you. He said, I'm just some guy who knows the lyrics to a song that's going to teach you these lyrics, and one day you're going to go off and teach them to somebody else. Another thing I heard was, we're just classmates. I've taken the test and I got the answer key. I'm going to pass them to you. You know, and what that does is that gives us humility, right? Humility, and I know I'm quoting not C.S. Lewis, but somebody is not thinking less of yourself, is thinking of yourself less. And I'm learning these fundamental things about selfless work. This is funny. It's interesting when you get in here and when you realize the power of just doing shit for people without expecting anything in return, what it gives you. If you want self-esteem, you do esteemable acts. When you realize how much gas that can give you as opposed to shit talking or gossiping or looking for something in return for people, it makes you feel gross. It's like putting 87 gas in your car in a quarter tank and trying to drive to Vegas. Like, it's not sustainable. But when you actually do stuff knowing that fundamentally it's gonna one, keep you sober, and two, it's gonna make you feel better. Like, I get addicted to that shit. Like, that's my new addiction, is helping others, you know? I love what Dr. Bob said in Dr. Bob's Nightmare. He said, upon getting sober, he said something like that I started helping other alcoholics, working with other alcoholics, for 4 reasons. A sense of duty, because it was his privilege, because in doing so, he was repaying a debt to the man that helped him get sober, and because every single time that he did it, he took off a little more insurance for himself against a possible slip. I literally feel like that. And I practice these principles in all my affairs. I have sponsees that are going through the steps. You know, I have a sponsor who has a sponsor who has a sponsor. You know, I'm doing everything that's asked of me. And I think one of the best compliments that was ever given to me was that I remain open-minded and I remain willing, which is, I think, on step 2 in the 12 and 12, is that all you really need is willingness and an open mind. I also heard another time, and it's funny because a lot of the stuff we talk about in this program is just like recycled information, which I love, because I'm not the originator of none of this shit. But I love how this guy said that you can't be too dumb for this program, but you can be too smart for it. All the time. Right? You really can. You can think your way out of this shit. I was asking too many questions. I remember this one woman was given a chair one time, and she came in saying, well, why do I have to believe in God? Why do I have to talk about this or do an inventory? Why do I have to make amends? Why? And her sponsor said, why don't you just stop asking why and ask what if? What if you do this shit? Have you ever done this? No. Have you tried a bunch of other shit to try to stay sober? It didn't work? Okay, and it didn't work, right? And ironically, she did the steps and now she has 17 years of sobriety. So, like, if you're new to this shit and you're not working your steps and you don't have a sponsor, that's okay. You keep coming back because you might find something. But I'm telling you right now that when you come in here and you realize that you no longer have drugs and alcohol as your solution, there's a big ass gap that's left to fill. And you have to fill it with something. And it's only a matter of time. So you want to equip yourself with these spiritual principles and as much artillery as you can to protect yourself out there so that you don't go looking elsewhere for other solutions until you land back on the bottle. And that's where I ended up. You know, I wake up every single day. My sponsor likes to say, I wake up every day assuming that tomorrow I'm gonna wake up and relapse and die. I don't know if I'll go that far, but I will say this, that I do live in a legitimate fear that I will relapse, and it's a healthy fear. I like having that fear because it keeps me in the mode of remembering that I need to go out there and help others, that I can't keep this shit unless I give it away. Okay, 2 minutes. But no, you know, so at this point in my sobriety, I just, I don't know. It's really simple for me. It's a simple program, but it can be hard if you're not used to being honest, if you're not used to going thoroughly for your own bullshit. But I can guarantee this, right? They say rarely have we seen it fail. Rarely. It's not a guarantee, but rarely have we seen it fail. If you can go through this, if you're willing to get honest with yourself to your higher power of your own understanding, and I love how they say that too, right? Because they didn't want to scare anybody off. A lot of people come in here and think it's very culty. That's a Christian-based program, which, you know, there's some historical aspect to that. But finding something that you can believe in, a power greater than yourself, you know, and making that conscious contact with a higher power, it gives you something that you need to survive out here. And then admitting it to another person gives you accountability, or being accountable to another person. So with that being said, I love my life. You know, they say the gifts of sobriety, you think of the cash and the prizes, and most people that have gotten the cash and the prizes will tell you those aren't really the gifts of sobriety. I mean, it's nice to have a family and wife and kids. And I remember one time I actually did an H&I panel with somebody recently and was like, dude, alcoholics, we know how to deal with the bad shit in our life. When things go bad, we know what to do. It's when things get good, what do you do? Right? When you get the house, when you get your family back, when all your friends want to be around you, and then your program becomes second, third, fourth, fifth, and all of a sudden you're not coming to meetings, you're not working your steps, and you're not working with the alcoholics. That's the scary shit. So for me, the gifts have been more so of a perception change. I no longer look at the things I don't have. I appreciate the things I do, and I'm just grateful. I no longer look at the differences in the people, how they look or how they think or anything like that. I just look for the similarities. There's something I can get from anybody I talk to and anybody I interact with. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys inviting me to here to talk. I hope that I reach at least one half of a person in here. And yeah, like I said, my name is Brian. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you.